Hey, fellow Gen Xers, got to talk about, as a Gen Xer, the implications of getting older, what we think about that, what the experience is.
Why are you so old?
And of course, memento mori, which we get from the Stoics, the ancient Greeks and Romans. To remember death, that death comes to us all.
I just want you to know, no matter what you do, you're gonna die, just like everybody else.
Thank you, Rose.
One of the things that happened recently was I am now squarely in my mid-50s. So you can't help but be thinking I have less time ahead of me than I have behind me. And that kind of a sobering thought. We all know we're gonna die someday, and it's not something I even thought about. I didn't even think about death or consider death that much until probably 10 years ago when I was around 44. It just wasn't something that I really thought about. But recently, somebody, and I'm reading about this a lot on Reddit, so it seems to be a kind of thing about depression and anxiety and not knowing about the future. And I was here in the first video, so I just wanted to get a shot. They're doing an awful lot of work, and I think this has a bit to do, and I'll talk about it once more when I get down at the corner. But in addition to having my birthday and being in my mid-50s now, is I was with a customer and I noticed their car. Yeah, they're doing a ton of work over here. I noticed on their car that they were a vet, and so I'm not necessarily a vet, but I did serve in the United States Army. I didn't see any combat, but given the guy's age, and I don't think this was ageism, it's just looking at his age, and he was a vet, I had to ask him if he was in Vietnam. Well, I know that I'm not 20 years old anymore, and I know I don't look 20 years old anymore, but I was a little bit taken back when he said to me that, yeah, he was in Vietnam. Did I serve in Nam? So I was a little taken back about that. And before anyone says about my hairline, I've had the same hairline for over 10 years, so I'll have to put a picture here in the video to prove that. I have been very lucky that part of my aging process is that my men's retreat has been really, really slow. But anyway, I don't have the right shaped head for that. I can do a buzz cut. I could do the whole Heartbreak Ridge, but...
Heartbreak Ridge.
Anyway, I was taken back about that. I said, I know I look older, but holy crap, this guy thought I was in Vietnam. So I didn't want to offend him and say, well, actually, I wasn't even born until after the Tet Offensive, which it turned out his first week in Vietnam was during the Tet Offensive. So this guy, and I don't ever probe, but this guy had seen some real Murder. He had seen quite a bit. He was attacked on the airfield when they actually first landed. So that got me thinking a bit more about the aging process and what my experience is. So let me know in the comments below what has been your experience getting to your mid or late 50s. If you're I'm kind of in the middle of the whole Gen X pile there. Well, nearer towards the older ones, which is fine. So let me know in the comments what your experience has been like getting to your mid-50s. My gosh, I can't believe I can even say that. Who the hell ever thought that I would be in my mid-50s? That really sucks. So part of my experience, I don't notice things too much different. I will say this, my knees have probably been sore since at least 46 years old. They're always sore. It used to be that I could lift heavy and, come the weekend, my knees would be fine, and then, maybe a little sore. But come Monday anyway, my knees wouldn't be sore anymore, and then I could start the process all over. And I will say that I do train, even at my advanced age, I do train still most days involving powerlifting moves, squats, deadlifts. I also do Olympic lifting, your snatches and clean and jerk and variations of that. And I also do gymnastic strength training, which has really contributed to some sore elbows. But what I've noticed is stress. And stress is really has a bit more of an effect on the body than it used to. It used to be going through some extreme stress. I could lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks and just have a steady decline on my squats and my deadlifts and a lot of my bigger lifts. Now, holy crap, the stress of the last few years, you get a little bit where you can relax a bit, but then the stress is back. So I will lose within, and it's nothing, I can eat more, I can have all the proteins, doesn't matter. I'm going to continue to lose strength until that stress eases up. So this latest round, I lost 100 pounds on my deadlift in less than a month, which is pretty devastating. I'm not getting sick, but I'm losing strength. And so not all my lifts will be that devastating, but certainly losing 100 pounds on my deadlift is that's bad. And that does affect my other lifts, of course, which is why I can't snatch. But that's a whole other video. So my knees being constantly sore and the stress affecting me to a much greater degree. I think I still recover as well as I did in my 40s. So when the stress isn't there, I am gaining strength regularly every single week. Well, until the stress hits again. That'll be the kind of deciding factor. So that and my hair. I am half Siciliano, and so I've heard, maybe it's just an old wives' tale, maybe it's just an urban legend, but I've had a number of barbers tell me that Sicilians do tend to go gray fast. So so I've been going gray since I was 17, so yeah, it's been a few decades. So I'm not completely gray right now, and I still have some red in the facial hair. That was really interesting, was I grew a goatee out as a goof, and it turned out that I have flaming red hair, or had flaming red facial hair. So that could be from either side. That could be from my Siciliano, because mia nonna did have strawberry blonde hair, so I don't know. And then again, I'm also half Irish and Scottish, so it could be from there. And since my 40s, when I really started focusing on death and having a number of friends, I had friends dying at 49. 49? An old roommate, good friend, but he was a type 1 diabetic, which we know what comes with that. Wow, I hate having the Amazon building right here. That really sucks. But we've got the airport back there. And so what they did was the Mesa Gateway Airport, they decided years ago to expand that, and now we're dealing with this unbelievable expansion of industrial development here in Mesa. So anyway, he wound up at 49 or 50 years old, just dropped down dead of a heart attack. It wasn't his first one. And the thing is, his dad was a type 1 diabetic, and he died, he was in his 70s, which still is too young, but 72, 73 is not 50 or 49, for heaven's sakes. So I've had to come to terms with that I have more days behind me than I have in front of me, trying to do my best to navigate the darkest timeline, as bad as things are. Now we've got another war. So not only do we have over a year and a half war in the Ukraine, which brings up enough, that wasn't enough generational trauma. But now there's a war again in Israel. So big shock that Benjamin Netanyahu, the warmonger, would have declared war. So whatever the circumstances, it's just not a surprise that it's under Netanyahu. So that constant reminder, and I think it's good to have that so that we don't just get older without accomplishing anything. I think that's helpful. We need to know that death comes to us all to make the best of our lives here. Maybe I shouldn't be crossing right in front, but I'll take my chances. I've been lucky so far. But this is an interesting corner. This gets me to another point that I want to make, and I think it's demonstrated aptly by all this damn construction. So behind me, it's all developed now, which is really unfortunate. This is something that I think it's kind of a metaphor for our lives, and I don't think this is really the best place to maybe be doing this. But what's gone from here is a memorial. And so I moved here. This is actually the street that I went down to get to my house when we were looking over 7 years ago now. And I noticed, first time, there's a memorial right here. And I took my daughter to school one day because it was, they always maintain this memorial here. And I just had to know. I mean, these kind of things, I don't know why, but they just seem to really interest me. I've got to know the story behind it.
I just want to hear the story.
And so you can see here, unfortunately, they're developing all this. So the memorial, up until late last year, for 8 years, this poor family was putting flowers and keeping the memorial here on this particular corner. And we can see how after we die, you know, it's just like my wife and I said at a funeral. Now comes the worst part, is after the funeral, everybody goes on their day and behaves, you know, so-and-so died, and we all just move on with our lives, because you have to. Because memento mori, death comes to us all, so we can't just be locked up in misery and mourning. But this family, this is, I think, is a tragedy, because this particular family were very diligent in taking care of this memorial. So one time, I was taking my daughter to school. I stopped right over here, and I said, hey, look up the name. Let's see if we can find out about what the hell happened over here. And just as what's still left here today, it was all just, it's all just a field. And his name was Jake. And unfortunately, Jake, as a teenager, he was riding a dirt bike over here. I believe I'm assuming that, because that's what the memorial is, right here. That he was dirt bike riding back here. I don't remember all the details, but he was killed in an accident on his dirt bike right here. And his name is Jake. I don't need to get more than that, but it always stuck with me. But then to have this, it's all being developed now. I mean, this poor family can't even put a memorial here. It's all going to be washed away. I mean, it's all going to be forgotten, except by this family. So where I had the reminder every time I drove down here, I could see, oh yeah, that's where that poor kid Jake died. And a family is affected for the rest of their lives. They lost a child, which nobody should lose a child. That's horrible. I probably need to move on from this particular corner. Maybe I can get onto the sidewalk there. Oh, we're probably not allowed on the sidewalk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way back. But I think it's sad that after maintaining, I mean, it's bad enough having to maintain a memorial for a child that has passed away, but to not even be able to put the memorial there because a bunch of rich douchebags, just like the Amazon building, a bunch of rich douchebags have to just buy it up and just wipe it out. Humanity means nothing. Only thing that matters is money. I know there's a whole thing, oh, you can't take it with you. But rich people act as if they can. So I just like that idea that we can, at least to hear in the video, Jake and the tragedy to Jake's family on this particular corner, I guess it's Elliot and Haas, that it's something to preserve that. So as far as my thoughts on death and the impending death, because yes, I've only got, if I'm lucky, I've got a few decades left. So given the way the longevity is in my family, I can reasonably look forward to mid-80s, mid-90s I can look forward to. And it took a long time. It took a long time to get comfortable knowing that I'm going to die, because I don't know about you. You let me know in the comments what you think. Does the idea of dying and not existing anymore, is that something you're comfortable with, or is it something that fills you with terror? Because I would say that most people are filled with terror even if they are given the benefit of a deathbed. That they will just go through, like with my father-in-law, 95 years old, always clear, and just wore out. The body just wore out, but still be terrified of death. So I've spoken to people in that situation, and they still were terrified of death, terrified of the unknown, terrified of not existing anymore. So it took me a long time to get comfortable with that. It's just one of those things you get used to, I guess. You just keep running over the idea in your head, and we get used to that. This will all be developed soon too. So I'm comfortable knowing that I will not exist anymore. I just want to make sure that it's a few decades in the future. I'm not killed by the Amazon building. Wouldn't that be something to get killed? Ugh. They couldn't even put up a memorial because it would just be built over. But what gets me, what I can't reconcile, what causes me anxiety, is knowing that my wife and my children are going to die someday. And I'm pretty certain that my wife and I are not going to go after our children. We won't have to see that. But it's still that nagging idea, knowing memento mori. Yeah, memento mori, death comes to us all, especially crappy old iPhones. After the iPhone 15 or a new model drops, they don't do well in the heat. And even though it is warm here in Arizona right now, it is October. And not nearly as hot as before. So even though it's only about 95 degrees, my camera died. So I'm going to take that as a clue that it's time to wrap this up. That I was mentioning that, yeah, I'm not very comfortable. Don't like the idea of my family dying, but that is something that we all have to deal with. We're going to lose friends and family. Especially as a Gen X or an older Gen Xer, that's going to happen. Friends and family are going to pass away, and which is really unfortunate. Not something I'm very comfortable with, but I'm getting more comfortable with that. So those are my reflections on growing older. Someone in the mid-50s, and somebody who was actually mistaken for someone who actually fought in Vietnam. So I was a little child when. Maybe a toddler when Vietnam ended. So not quite that old yet, and I don't think I look quite that old. Let me know in the comments if you think I look old enough to have fought in Vietnam. So I probably shouldn't set myself up for that. Wow, they've really cleared out back there. So let me know how you're dealing as a Gen Xer, how you're dealing with getting older and knowing that we have more years behind us than we have ahead of us. Let me know there in the comments how you're dealing with it, and hopefully you're dealing with it at least as well as I think I am.